You know, when a guy like King Herod the Great dies, he doesn't just leave behind a kingdom, he leaves behind a total power vacuum. And what rushed in to fill it was chaos, ambition, and some of the absolute strangest stories you'll ever hear from the ancient world. So today, we are diving headfirst into the bizarre fates of the people connected to his fractured dynasty. We're talking tales of imposters, prophetic dreams, and vengeful ghosts that show you just how rotten things had become.
Okay, so before we get into all the weirdness, you gotta know who's who. We're really focusing on two of Herod's sons here, the half-brothers Alexander and Archelaus. Now, Herod had Alexander executed, a key fact, while Archelaus actually inherited a piece of the kingdom. And caught right in the middle of it all is Glaphyra, a princess whose fate is tangled up with both of them. Seriously, pay attention to these connections, because this messy family tree is basically the fuse for the explosion that's about to come. All right, our first story, it's like a high-stakes con game from 2,000 years ago. Years after Herod executed his son Alexander, a man just shows up, claiming to be that very same prince, miraculously saved from death. But was he the real deal?
So here's the setup. And you have to admit it's pretty brilliant. This guy looked the part. He really did. And he had an accomplice, someone who knew all the juicy inside details of the royal court. Their story was that the executioners felt sorry for the real prince and swapped his body with someone else's at the last minute. It was just plausible enough, just crazy enough, that people started to believe it.
And boy, did it work. This whole thing just snowballed. The imposter's journey to Rome was a masterclass in building a lie. He starts small in Crete, telling his sob story and collecting money from supporters. By the time he gets to Melos, his story is so convincing that people are actually joining his entourage. And when he finally lands in Italy, he's greeted like a returning king. In Rome itself, the spectacle was insane. The crowds were so huge they literally blocked the streets, everyone desperate for a glimpse of the prince who came back from the dead. Look, the whole Jewish community in Rome might have been completely fooled, but there was one man who wasn't buying it for a second, Emperor Augustus Caesar. See, he had personally known the real Alexander. He'd met him, talked with him, and the moment he heard about this supposed prince making a scene in his city, he knew something was very, very wrong. Now, Caesar was way too clever to just have the guy arrested. Instead, he brings him in for a private chat, and his sharp eye immediately spots the flaw. The face was close, yeah, but the body, the hands were rough, the build was too strong. This wasn't the body of a prince, it was the body of a laborer. So, instead of shouting for the guards, Caesar makes him a deal. You tell me who put you up to this, and I'll let you live. And just like that, the con was over. The imposter squealed, giving up his accomplice, the brains behind the whole operation, who was, of course, immediately executed. And our fake prince? Well, in a moment of grim, almost poetic justice, Caesar took note of that strong physique and sentenced him to a life of hard labor as a rower on a Roman warship. He got to keep his life, but he would live it out as a slave. So, while one man failed spectacularly at impersonating a prince, another of Herod's sons, Archelaus, actually got the throne. But believe me, his story is no happier. It's a tale of cruelty, failure, and a prophetic dream that spelled out his doom.
To put it mildly, Archelaus was a terrible ruler. He governed with such an iron fist, treating both Jews and Samaritans so brutally that his subjects did something pretty much unthinkable. They put aside their own bitter rivalries, joined forces, and sent a delegation to Rome to literally beg Caesar to get this guy away from them. Right as his whole world was about to come crashing down around him, Archelaus has this strange and incredibly vivid dream. It felt important, like it held the key to his future. If only someone could figure out what on earth it meant.
This was the vision. He saw 9 full, beautiful, healthy ears of corn. But then a group of oxen came along and just devoured them, ate every last one. He woke up deeply disturbed and immediately called for his diviners to explain it.
One of them, an Essene named Simon, came forward with a pretty chilling interpretation. He said, look, those 9 ears of corn, that's 9 years. 9 years of your rule. The oxen, well, they plow and turn over the earth. They symbolize a violent, sudden change of fortune. The prediction was blunt. You will reign for 9 years, and then it's all over. And you will not believe how fast this came true. We're not talking months or weeks. A mere 5 days after Simon interpreted that dream,
the summons from Caesar arrived. Archelaus was hauled off to trial, stripped of all his power, and banished to Gaul. His 9-year reign was over, exactly as the dream had foretold.
Okay, our final story brings all of these threads together, focusing back on Glaphyra, the woman who married both brothers, and hers is the most chilling tale of all. It's a story of a forbidden marriage and a dream that turned out to be fatal.
So Glaphyra's life was just a series of political marriages. First, she was married to Alexander, the prince who got executed. After he died, she married King Juba of Libya. But then Juba died too. And this is where she made a fateful choice. She married her first husband's half-brother, Archelaus. You have to understand, under Jewish law, marrying your dead husband's brother like this, it was a profound transgression, a huge taboo.
Shortly after this scandalous marriage, Glaphyra had a dream that would terrify anyone. In it, the ghost of her first husband, Alexander, stood right in front of her, and he spoke. He accused her of defiling his memory, of returning to his family only to marry his own brother. And he ends with this chilling promise: I shall not overlook the injury. I shall have thee again, whether thou wilt or no.
I mean, can you even imagine? She woke up absolutely terrified. She told her friends what she'd seen, what Alexander's ghost had said to her, and the story barely had time to get around town before the ghost prophecy came true. Just 2 days after that dream, Glaphyra was dead.
So what do we make of all this? An imposter, a banished ruler, and a haunted princess? You know, these aren't just 3 weird, isolated stories. They're symptoms. They're all symptoms of a dynasty that's in its death throes.
Ruin just came for them all, but in different flavors. The impostor's ambition got him a life of slavery. Archelaus's cruelty led to a disgraceful political exile. And Glaphyra's forbidden marriage ended in a mysterious, terrifying death, seemingly haunted by her past. Each fate is like a different piece of a shattered mirror, all reflecting the chaos that Herod left in his wake.
And this leaves us with one big final question. Are these just bizarre historical anecdotes? You know, fun, spooky stories about con artists, dreams, and ghosts? Or do these deeply personal tragedies reveal something much deeper? Are they symptoms of the instability and moral decay of a kingdom that was sliding, day by day, towards rebellion and a catastrophic war with Rome? The fate of a whole dynasty, it seems, was reflected in the nightmares of its doomed heir.